Welcome back. Today we're going to do a leak down test on the Continental 4. Compression checked, a little low, which is honestly making me think I probably got my cam and crank timing off. I probably missed the mark. It's all gear driven and it's kind of awkward to see it, and I probably just goofed it up. But I thought I would do a leak down test just to make sure that when I lapped in the valves, or originally when I didn't do a real rebuild on this, I just kind of cleaned things up and re-gasketed. But I did do a little ball hone on the cylinders, and I just shoved the pistons all the way to the bottom of the cylinders, ball honed it out, shoved the pistons back up. And that was just to kind of take the little bit of glaze off the cylinder that there was. So we're going to do a leak down test just to make sure that we don't have a real bad leaking intake exhaust valve, or the rings are blowing by real bad or something like that. So what we've done is I've already pulled the spark plug. I added a little bit of 30 weight oil into the cylinder, just maybe a teaspoon. And now we're going to go ahead and set up our leak down tester. Now this is not an expensive model. It's about a $30 tool off of Amazon, and it's probably the same one you get at Harbor Freight. What we need to do is make sure the regulator's out of the left. Both needles are on the peg to the left. And for this part of the test, all we're doing is setting up the instrument. So we're going to run the pressure up until this needle comes over to the yellow area, which is called set, and it's about a 10% area of the gauge. And we want to get in that yellow area as close to the zero as possible. So we're going to start opening up the regulator, and I've noticed that this gauge, the needle moves a little bit if you tap on it. So we'll, as we get close here, right there. So we're going to lock that regulator in with our adapter already in the cylinder hole. We're going to go ahead and put that on there. I've got a little bit of leaking valve here on my hose, so there we go. I think you can see that. Okay, so you can see that now. We're running about 25, and it kind of fluctuates. See it there? It's hitting, it's moving some of that oil around in the cylinder. And I've checked, it's not coming out on the intake side, and I can't hear it coming out the exhaust. But if I get over on the other side of the motor where you put the oil in, I can hear a little bit of air over there, and you can kind of hear it burbling through the engine oil. So I've moved the microphone now over near the oil inlet, and just so you could hear the air coming out of that. And it'll drop, and then it'll spike back up and drop and spike back up. But it seems to run around 25 to 30% most of the time on the leak down. And this would be the time that you want to watch this needle. If your pressure is going up or down here, then this gauge isn't going to give you an accurate reading. We want to see a real stable number here of whatever it is. In our case, we started out at 15 psi, and we're keeping a constant flow of about 10 psi. And we can see it's dropping over time, but it's staying in the green range. And for a motor that's, well, it's originally a 54 model, it has been rebuilt a number of times, but obviously that's probably more than adequate. So that tells me I don't have a leaking intake valve because we're not hearing air through the carburetor. I don't have a leaking exhaust valve because I'm not hearing air out the exhaust. I am hearing some air coming through the dipstick and refill area over on the side of the motor. So the rings are where I'm losing my little bit of pressure that I'm losing. And that's to be expected. We don't have a super tight, brand new, freshly broke in motor. We have a well-worn motor. And continuing on with our diagnostics, probably indicates that rather than having ignition timing issues why I can't get it to start, it's probably valve timing, meaning the cam and the crank are not quite synced. Probably meaning that my valves are beginning to open before the pistons are reaching top dead center, and I'm losing compression that way, which would be why my compression numbers are down. So for the leak down part of this test, we would do this for all 4 cylinders, rotating the motor by hand until the cylinder is at, the piston is at top dead center on the firing stroke, so both valves are closed, and run that test for each cylinder. What this means for my diagnostics is I almost certainly have a cam and a crank timing issue, and which means I'm going to have to pull the radiator and the accessory drive system back off the front of the motor to check my work up there. So it's a great tool for diagnostics. That's how you use it. If you don't have one, they're inexpensive, and if you're doing much work with engines, be a great tool to add to your collection. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching Allison Customs Project Car TV. Like us on Facebook and check us out at AllisonCustomsOnline.com.